I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen Bee.
The chair had already been positioned beneath the chandeliers. The place card had already been printed, and Princess Charlotte's name had already appeared on the final guest list. Then, less than an hour before the royal gala began, Catherine issued an order that stunned the palace. Her daughter would not attend. It was not illness, scheduling, or protocol that forced the change. It was a disrespectful comment from Meghan and Catherine had decided the line had finally been crossed. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The decision mattered. The Crown Heritage Gala, an annual gathering of senior royals, diplomats, cultural patrons, and younger family members, was meant to introduce Charlotte to formal duty beside her parents. This was her first step into public evening service, a test of confidence and belonging. Charlotte had spent the afternoon practicing greetings, reviewing seating customs, and rehearsing an introduction for youth patrons. Her dress had been approved. Her place card sat beside William's. A briefing folder detailing her responsibilities waited unopened upstairs. Then an aide repeated what Meghan had said near two officials. Charlotte had not earned such a prominent place and was being elevated too quickly. Catherine did not shout. She closed the folder, rested one hand upon it, and instructed the Lord Chamberlain's office, the Royal Household Department responsible for ceremonial arrangements, to remove Charlotte from the guest list. Her daughter would remain in the private apartments. She would not become a symbol inside an adult conflict, or face a room searching for signs of hurt. Charlotte sensed the change when an attendant carried away her gala shoes. She looked at Catherine and asked whether she had done something wrong. The question cut deeper than the insult. Her mother knelt, took both her hands, and promised this was not punishment. Yet the sadness in her voice revealed how personally the remark had landed. William arrived after reading Catherine's message. He looked toward the empty chair and asked whether she was certain. She answered yes. The prince removed his cufflinks, set them down, and said they would face the night together. Several household members already knew what had happened, because Meghan's words had been spoken within palace hearing. As Charlotte's place card was lifted from the banquet table, Meghan learned that Catherine had ordered the change. She did not apologize. She asked why one observation had become a royal crisis. But the empty chair was only the visible consequence. Behind it stood 4 people carrying very different wounds, and each believed the night had exposed something far deeper than one careless remark. To the guests entering Windsor that evening, the change appeared small. One young princess would no longer attend. But behind closed doors, the decision touched every fault line inside the family. Catherine saw a child who needed protection. Charlotte feared she had failed. William saw an old conflict reaching toward his daughter, and Meghan believed she was being punished for saying aloud what others only whispered. The gala had not yet begun, yet the emotional battle was already underway. Catherine had spent years preparing Charlotte for a life where privilege came with relentless judgment. Every smile could be examined, every mistake enlarged, and every comparison turned into a headline. The gala was meant to introduce duty gently, allowing the young princess to stand beside her parents without becoming trapped inside the rivalries surrounding them. Now that careful step had become something painful. Charlotte sat beside the folded program and searched her mother's face for an explanation. She asked whether she had spoken too loudly during rehearsal or forgotten the proper greeting. Catherine felt the question strike harder than Meghan's comment, because her daughter had already assumed the blame. She sat beside her and promised that nothing she had done caused the decision, though Charlotte could hear the sadness her mother was trying to hide. William read the documented account prepared by the aide who had heard the exchange. He reached the final sentence, folded the page once, and placed it inside his jacket. The prince did not raise his voice. His anger became colder and more controlled, because he understood that one reckless reaction could turn a private family insult into an international spectacle. Meghan's words had carried a sharper meaning than Charlotte knew. She had suggested that the palace was promoting the young princess early because the institution needed a more appealing symbol of its future. For Catherine, that changed everything. Her daughter had not merely been questioned, she had been reduced to a tool in an adult argument. Harry had heard the final part of the exchange and had not challenged it immediately. Now he stood with Meghan away from the gathering and asked whether she had intended the remark to sound so harsh. She adjusted one glove, met his eyes, and said she had criticized the system, not the child. He answered that a child's name had still been used. The silence between them revealed a division neither could dismiss. Meghan believed she was being punished for exposing royal favoritism. Harry feared that old resentment had reached someone too young to defend herself. Catherine soon learned that the Gala remark was not spontaneous. It echoed an earlier confrontation involving Charlotte at a private royal ceremony, an incident the palace had deliberately kept hidden. And once that earlier moment resurfaced, Catherine understood that the comment at Windsor was not the beginning of the conflict, but the second strike in a wound that had never truly healed. Weeks before the gala, another room had fallen silent around Princess Charlotte. It happened during a private rehearsal for a youth investiture, when a disagreement over precedence became something far more personal. The palace contained the incident, removed it from official notes, and urged everyone present to move forward. Catherine tried. Meghan insisted she had been misunderstood. But the words spoken that afternoon never disappeared. They waited beneath the surface until one final comment at Windsor brought everything back. The rehearsal at St. George's Hall had been arranged for the Youth Service Investiture, a ceremony honoring young volunteers for public service. Charlotte would present commemorative pins, while Meghan was due to introduce a charitable initiative. Aides explained each position, greeting, and the exact order of remarks, because one mistake could disrupt the ceremony. Meghan noticed that Charlotte's presentation came before her address. She asked why a child had been placed at the emotional center of the program. Staff answered that the sequence had been approved months earlier and reflected the event's focus on youth, not rank. The explanation did not ease her frustration. She looked toward Charlotte's marked position and said, within Catherine's hearing, that the palace was training another girl to smile while adults make the decisions. Catherine moved at once. She ended Charlotte's rehearsal and asked her daughter to wait outside with an aide. Then she faced Meghan alone and told her to keep the child outside their disagreements. Her voice remained measured, but the boundary was unmistakable. Meghan replied that she was criticizing how royal girls were shaped by the institution, not attacking Charlotte. Catherine answered that concern did not give anyone the right to use a child as proof in an adult argument. Meghan felt silenced. She insisted that shielding Charlotte from uncomfortable truths would not protect her from future expectations. Catherine refused to debate the monarchy through her daughter. The exchange ended without apology, and a senior courtier removed it from the official rehearsal summary. The written account mentioned only a timing adjustment, while those present were instructed to say nothing. Days later, Charlotte asked why someone would think her smile was not her own choice. Catherine realized the words had reached deeper than anyone admitted. From that moment, she quietly limited her daughter's exposure whenever Meghan appeared in a sensitive royal setting. So when the same criticism returned before the gala, Catherine no longer heard clumsy frustration. She recognized a pattern and decided the next conversation would happen face to face. The palace had buried the first confrontation beneath polite language, but the second could not be erased, and Catherine entered the next room, determined that Meghan would hear exactly why Charlotte's chair had been removed. There were no cameras, no advisors standing between them, and no ceremonial smiles left to perform. Catherine entered the private morning room knowing Charlotte was upstairs, confused and disappointed. Meghan was already waiting beside the fireplace, convinced that her words had been distorted into an offense she never intended. For several seconds, neither woman sat. Then Catherine placed Charlotte's withdrawn Gala card upon the table and said quietly, "This is what your comment has cost her tonight." Catherine had demanded the meeting minutes after confirming her daughter's removal. William remained outside, while Harry was told that Meghan must enter alone. Without aides, secretaries, or palace officials to soften their words, the disagreement stopped being an institutional problem and became something far more painful. One mother confronting another woman over the emotional harm done to her child. Catherine did not begin with rumors. She pointed to the card carrying Charlotte's name and explained why it had been taken from the royal table. Her daughter would not enter a ballroom where adults might examine every expression for humiliation or use her presence to deepen a family feud. Meghan answered that she had questioned the palace's judgment, not Charlotte's worth. Placing a 9-year-old at the heart of such a politically charged gathering, she argued, turned a child into part of the institution's message. Meghan felt Catherine was using motherhood to make criticism forbidden. Catherine rejected that charge. She reminded her that Charlotte had been named directly, her place had been questioned, and her importance had been dismissed as a public relations choice. Intention, she said, could not erase impact. Then she pushed the withdrawn card forward until it stopped before Meghan. The balance shifted when Catherine repeated the exact sentence spoken during the youth service investiture rehearsal. Meghan's face changed. She had believed that earlier confrontation had disappeared beneath the palace's carefully edited record. Instead, Catherine revealed that Charlotte remembered the remark and had later asked why anyone believed her smile was not truly her own. Meghan finally sat and removed one glove. She accused the family of selective protection, asking why Charlotte's discomfort inspired immediate action when others had endured years of public damage without the same defense. Catherine did not excuse those failures. She said they would not be repeated through her daughter. "You have turned disagreement into exile," Meghan said. Catherine remained standing. "Charlotte has not been exiled. She has been protected." That difference defined everything. Yet the decision was no longer theirs alone. Senior palace officials now knew the exact wording and were debating whether Meghan should remain at the gala at all. Catherine had protected her daughter, but her choice had now reached the throne, where a private maternal boundary was about to become a test of royal power. King Charles received the briefing only minutes before he was expected to greet the first diplomatic guests. The document was barely 2 pages long, yet every sentence carried the weight of years of family division. Catherine had removed Charlotte. Meghan refused to describe her comment as an insult. William stood firmly behind his wife. And now the king faced a choice that no courtier could make for him: override the future queen's decision, or confirm that a new boundary had been drawn. Charles read the account in a small study beside the state apartments, and stopped at the sentence describing Charlotte, asking whether she had done something wrong. The king removed his glasses, placed them beside the paper, and remained silent until the equerry across from him lowered his eyes. That question changed the entire meaning of the dispute. This was no longer about wounded pride or ceremonial precedence. A child had begun blaming herself for an adult conflict. Catherine's authority was stronger than Meghan had realized. Charlotte was still a minor, which meant her participation ultimately rested with her parents. Palace officials could advise, rearrange the program, and warn of consequences, but they could not force the young princess into the room. Catherine's decision came from personal pain, yet it also stood on firm institutional ground. Charles felt trapped between two failures. He had hoped the Crown Heritage Gala would present a rare image of family stability after years of division. Removing Meghan could destroy that hope before the first guest arrived. Overruling Catherine, however, would tell William and Charlotte that ceremony mattered more than emotional safety. William entered when summoned. The monarch asked whether his daughter might attend only the opening reception and avoid the banquet. The prince answered without anger. Charlotte was not a compromise to be divided into acceptable portions of public exposure. His refusal was quiet, but absolute. Charles read the briefing again and signed an internal instruction confirming that Charlotte's withdrawal would stand. He ordered that no public explanation should place responsibility upon her. The official account would call it a private family decision. Yet the king stopped short of removing Meghan. She could attend, but her scheduled youth initiative remarks would be cancelled. Expelling her, he believed, would create a spectacle greater than the insult itself. The compromise preserved her seat while taking away the platform connected to Charlotte's role. After William left, Charles lifted the original seating plan and studied the family names arranged together. He folded the page until that section disappeared beneath the diplomatic list. The king's compromise prevented an immediate expulsion, but it also delivered a quieter humiliation, and Meghan's reaction would ensure that the fallout began before the first toast was raised. When the ballroom doors opened, every place at the royal table appeared perfect except one. Charlotte's chair had been removed entirely, leaving no obvious gap for guests to question. Yet those who had seen the earlier seating plan immediately noticed the change. Catherine entered beside William with composed expressions, while Meghan discovered that her name had vanished from the speaking schedule. No announcement explained either decision. Inside the glittering hall, silence became its own form of accusation. Palace staff had worked quickly. They shifted the table settings, removed Charlotte's name card, and reprinted the order of speeches before the first guests arrived. The revised program looked seamless, but the speed of the changes revealed something unsettling. The institution could hide disruption from public view far more easily than it could repair the pain beneath it. Catherine still attended because withdrawing with her daughter would have intensified suspicion and turned Charlotte's absence into the only story of the evening. Before leaving the private apartments, she kissed the young princess, promised to return early, and placed the gala program beside her. The gesture was meant to show that the preparation had mattered, even if the night had been taken away. William stayed close as they entered the reception. He understood how much control Catherine was forcing herself to maintain. When she noticed the youth delegation Charlotte had rehearsed to greet, her expression tightened. One volunteer asked whether the princess would join them later. Catherine paused before answering that Charlotte was spending the evening privately. Her voice remained gentle, but the question nearly broke the composure she had carried downstairs. Meghan discovered her own punishment moments later. She opened the revised schedule and found that her youth initiative address had been replaced by a short speech from a senior patron. She turned to Harry and asked whether he had known. His hesitation answered before his words did. He had been informed only minutes earlier and had not found the courage to tell her. Senior guests soon connected the two changes. Charlotte had vanished from the youth segment, and Meghan had lost the speech linked to it. A diplomat quietly asked an aide whether a security concern had forced the revision. The denial was careful, almost rehearsed, and that caution only deepened the suspicion. The secret began moving beyond Windsor when a courtier who had heard the original exchange sent a private message to someone outside the palace. The remark was summarized, not quoted, yet within an hour, a media editor had received a tip that Catherine removed Charlotte after a family insult. After the first course, Meghan placed her napkin beside her plate and left the table. Harry followed. She told him the evening had been designed to make her appear guilty without allowing her to answer. He replied that the program had changed because Charlotte was hurt. Meghan turned away, wounded by his refusal to defend her without condition. Upstairs, Charlotte was still awake when Catherine returned during a brief interval. The ballroom could disguise Charlotte's missing chair, but Catherine could not disguise the truth from her daughter, and their private conversation would transform protection into something more courageous. Catherine found Charlotte sitting awake beside the window, still wearing the bracelet chosen for the gala. There were no advisors in the room, no palace officials preparing statements, and no audience beyond mother and daughter. Charlotte did not ask why she had missed the music or the speeches. She asked whether someone had said she did not belong there. In that moment, Catherine understood that protection without honesty could leave a child imagining something even more painful than the truth. Catherine had left the reception during a scheduled interval and gone directly upstairs. William remained below because their joint absence would have drawn fresh attention to Charlotte's disappearance. The young princess sat beside the unopened briefing folder, waiting. She explained that she had seen her place card being carried away and heard 2 attendants mention that someone had questioned her invitation. She did not know the exact words, but she knew another member of the family was involved. Catherine chose the truth carefully. She told Charlotte that an adult had made an unfair comment about why she had been invited. She did not repeat the cruelest part or encourage anger. Instead, she explained that people sometimes carry old pain for so long that they place it upon someone younger without realizing the harm they are causing. Charlotte listened, then asked the question Catherine had not prepared for. Why had she been removed when she was not the person who had spoken badly? The words landed with force. Catherine had believed withdrawal was the safest choice, yet she now saw the danger hidden inside it. By removing Charlotte, she may also have taught her that the wounded person must surrender the room while the adult who caused the pain remains inside it. Charlotte said she did not want to attend the banquet. She did, however, want to greet the youth volunteers she had practiced for. She wanted them to know she had not forgotten them. Catherine studied her daughter's face and asked whether the choice was truly hers. Charlotte answered yes. Catherine took her hand. She explained that courage did not mean pretending words could not hurt. It meant refusing to let another person's words decide who she would become. Charlotte squeezed her mother's fingers and asked for her gala shoes. Catherine did not return her to the royal table. Instead, she arranged a smaller closing reception after the banquet, allowing Charlotte to fulfill her promise without turning the child into a symbol of victory over Meghan. When the young princess entered beside her mother, their hands remained joined. One photograph captured that moment. By morning, it would define the entire night. What began as an act of withdrawal became a carefully chosen return, and when the image reached the outside world, the palace could no longer contain the story behind it. By sunrise, the gala's official speeches had been forgotten. One photograph stood above every other image. Catherine walking into the closing reception with Charlotte's hand held firmly in hers. The young princess was not seated at the banquet, yet she had returned on her own terms to greet the volunteers she had promised to meet. Then the reason for her earlier absence emerged. Within hours, the palace's private conflict became a public debate about childhood, dignity, and the limits of royal criticism. The palace issued a carefully limited statement confirming that Charlotte had missed the main gala, but attended a smaller concluding reception. Officials described the arrangement as a family decision and refused to discuss private conversations. The wording protected the child from direct questioning, yet its silence left the public searching for the cause. Broadcasters began reconstructing the evening. They compared the original program with the revised schedule and discovered that Meghan's Youth Initiative speech had disappeared at the same time as Charlotte's place at the banquet. Correspondents outside Windsor then received confirmation through a documented account from a courtier present before the gala. A disrespectful comment had triggered Catherine's decision. Public sympathy shifted quickly. Viewers argued that debates over privilege, representation, and the monarchy belonged between adults. A child should never be forced to carry resentment she did not create. By breakfast, the fictional London Chronicle had placed Catherine and Charlotte across its front page beneath the headline, "Her Mother's Line, Charlotte Returns After Gala Insult." Outside Henry VI's gate, a small crowd gathered with handwritten cards declaring, "Let children be children." Meghan watched the reaction in silence. A broadcaster described Catherine's choice as a mother drawing a boundary around her daughter. Before the discussion ended, she switched off the television. Harry sat opposite her and said the criticism may have been aimed at the palace, but Charlotte's name should never have been used. Meghan heard the judgment inside his restraint. For the first time, even he was no longer defending her intention without confronting its consequence. A veteran royal correspondent then delivered the sentence that defined the scandal. Criticizing the crown is public debate. Using a child to carry that criticism is personal. The words spread rapidly and hardened public opinion. Catherine kept the coverage away from Charlotte. Instead, she handed her a packet of notes from the youth volunteers, thanking her for returning. The young princess read one aloud, smiled, and placed it inside her briefing folder. Yet the relief carried one final demand. Meghan now had to choose between defending the comment and deepening the rupture, or admitting that Charlotte had become collateral damage. The public had delivered its judgment on the boundary Catherine drew, but the family still needed one final act of honesty before the night could become something more than another permanent royal fracture. The crisis did not end with a palace announcement or a triumphant public appearance. It ended in a smaller room, without photographers, when Meghan finally looked at the consequences of her words rather than the intentions behind them. Charlotte had missed the gala she prepared for. Catherine had been forced to choose between ceremony and protection. William had watched an old family conflict reach his daughter. The monarchy's final verdict was simple. No grievance, however deeply felt, justified making a child its battlefield. Meghan requested one last private meeting before leaving Windsor. She did not arrive to challenge royal history or defend every past wound. Catherine entered with the same restraint, knowing that another public argument would keep Charlotte trapped at the center of attention. The Princess of Wales made one boundary clear. She wanted no televised apology, and no official statement naming anyone. She wanted Meghan to acknowledge that a child had been hurt by words she never invited, and could not answer. Meghan finally accepted the difference between intention and impact. She admitted that she had used Charlotte's role to express anger toward the palace, and failed to consider how directly the criticism would reach her. She still believed royal children carried unfair symbolic burdens, but she understood that naming the young princess had turned a wider argument into a personal wound. Catherine listened without triumph. She explained that she first removed her daughter to protect her from scrutiny, then allowed her to return privately because Charlotte refused to let another person's words control her promise to the youth volunteers. Meghan took out a sheet of paper and wrote a short note by hand. She offered no excuse and mentioned no palace dispute. She told Charlotte that the young princess deserved to enjoy her role without carrying an adult disagreement, and she apologized for making her feel unwelcome. Catherine read the note once, folded it, and agreed to deliver it. Charlotte later read the message beside her mother and asked whether she had to respond. Catherine said no. After a long pause, the child wrote 2 words beneath it, "Thank you." Then she closed the folder and went to join William and George, no longer believing the missed gala had been her fault. The apology did not restore trust, but it established a lasting boundary. Future events involving Catherine's children would be protected more firmly, and Meghan accepted those limits. Charlotte's empty chair remained in the banquet photographs, yet her chosen return became the memory that endured. The gala ended, the apology was delivered, and the family moved forward under a boundary that could no longer be misunderstood. Whatever battles divided the adults, Charlotte would never again be asked to carry them. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.